So we are here with Dr. Ramchan Woo from LG, one of my favorite manufacturers, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite manufacturers.
Thank you.
And really we wanted to talk to you about, LG has been in Android for a long time, not quite from the beginning, but certainly as long as I've been doing this. So let's just go back to there. Since 2009, basically, when we still had these basic phones running Android 1.5, 1.6, how would you look at the early days of Android and the early days of LG smartphones and compare them to where we are today with the LG G4, the new V10 line?
Right. At that time, I don't want to recall the time.
Those were dark days.
Right. Dark days. Actually, at the time, at LG, we've been struggling for, at that time, we struggled for between the Android and the Microsoft at the time. And we launched Microsoft platform and the Android platform together at like 2009 and 10, and finally we have decided to focus more on Android. And also at the same time, Android platform itself gets far better. Actually, originally just was the operating system, but now is more than an operating system. So when I look at Android today, is a gateway or a portal to the Google service.
What did you see at the time was holding it back? Was it a matter of the software just not being ready or the hardware not being ready? Because
both of them.
From a design standpoint.
I mean both of them. Right. The hardware was not ready, and also the software was not complete and ready compared to today. And that's pretty much what happened in 2009 at the time.
So as we started to get higher spec phones from LG with Android, the design of the phones really started to change as well. We went from just these blocky black slabs with a few buttons at the bottom to something that absolutely stands on its own and is iconic in its own right. Can you kind of talk about some of the early thinking behind those efforts? Was it a conscious thought or just kind of the direction it went?
Oh, actually, so when you recall the older days when we were really good in the feature phone era, so we are known for the design. Like Prada and Prada phone and the Shine and our chocolate phones. We are known, and LG was known for the design, but when the smartphone generation just came in, then we were struggling to catch up, porting the software stuff. So at that time we just accidentally lost our momentum or our mind to focus on the design. So anyway, and from 2010 and 11. We actually came to realize that, well, our DNA was not that in porting the software. Actually, our DNA is natively the design. So our main focus was the design. So design, to make a good design, we had to have good hardware as well. And then we also came to realize the software is important as well. So that was the beginning. So we actually accidentally lost our momentum or mind for a couple of periods, for some period. Then just we came back to the origin of LG DNA.
Was there one device or one specific point you could kind of point to and say, that's it, that's when we started to turn around? If you ask me, it was probably around like the Optimus 2X.
The Prada 3.0. Actually, that design was, the Prada 3.0 smartphone itself was not sold that many units because of it's too expensive. But that design language came down to all other our low-cost platforms like L series, and also that design language came spill over to G series as well. Then starting from like G, and then G2 and G3 and G4, and here we are. So basically, that product 3.0 was the milestone for the design.
In 2011, things got a little interesting, and LG wasn't the only company, but we started to see 3D displays and 3D technology. And I can't say it took off, but we saw a lot of people experimenting with it at one time. Can you talk a little bit about that? Was that that bubble up kind of from the silicon manufacturers saying, "Hey, we have this stuff we want to try out"?
From many aspects, like especially that 3D phone, Optima 3D, it came from many directions. Like the device manufacturer, chipset manufacturers, they came up with the idea of supporting the stereoscopic camera, and also our Innotech, LG Innotech, they had the technology. And also at the same time, our television guys, they're really good at and hot about 3D TVs. So it was everywhere at that time.
And that's something that I think a lot of people miss out with LG as a company is you have all these different parts. You have LG Innotek, which does the cameras, right? You have LG Display, which makes displays. You have LG Mobile,
Cam.
Cam, which does the batteries. Was it always a matter of all the different subsidiary companies working together, or at some point did somebody have to say, wait a minute, we have all these great components, why aren't we using them together?
That's G. Yep. That's how G came out. So we never realized. Oh, of course, we did realize they are good one, but we never realized they are all within the same LG umbrella. So also we realized that those three sister companies, they supplied the best component to our competitors. So we came to realize at that time, let's make a product based on the best part from each sister companies, and also try to integrate it all together. And that's the beginning of G series.
And I was there for that. It was a pretty exciting time. The LG G2, though, kind of turned everything on its head. All of a sudden now we have rear-facing buttons, which sounded crazy, but it worked. And ask anyone who's used it, and it ruins you for any other phone because suddenly you're trying to use the back. Knock on. Or what was the other name it had?
The knock on and knock hold.
Yeah, knock code.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little more about the design decisions that go into doing something that revolutionary? I mean, were there people saying, no, you can't do that?
So also that design with the button on the back, came from different parts. Like a design, actually they had a mock-up. At the time, they had a design mock-up with the button on the back, and it looked really nice. It looked really nice, and without taking deeply looking into the details of how they really like it or not at the time. Also, at the same time, I try to push really hard to have a minimized bezel on top, and left and right as well. And our R&D engineering team, they asked me if we ever take the volume button out from the side, then we can. They said they can minimize the bezel on the left and right. So it came from everywhere. So and we start evaluating the people's acceptance of the back button, and of course the answer was pretty horrible, as you expect. And but also at that time, what we really wanted was, well, this is LG and we are different, and well, if you really fall in love with the regular form factor, you can buy other one. But if you want to jump into something different and try that, then this is the answer. This is the something you can have. This is the alternative. So that's the beginning. So we at that time also although we had a G, but the technology, from the technology standpoint, it's pretty good phone. But from the marketing standpoint, it was really difficult to differentiate LG phone from others. So from all aspects, actually, that's why we came up with the button on the back, and that was G2.
Around that time, we got the Nexus 4, which really, I think, introduced LG as a company to a whole new world of people. I mean, let's call it the nerds found LG, and a lot of us kind of fell in love with that phone.
Right.
I found it really interesting because that was sort of the second glass-backed phone, that crystal reflective process,
right,
I think we called it. And it was also kind of very quickly, not dismissed, but those were the only two phones we saw with that. So LG... you're obviously not afraid to try stuff, but you're also not afraid to just kind of cast it aside if it didn't work for whatever reason, for monetary reasons or manufacturing, or if people just didn't like it. Does that kind of continue now? I mean, these back buttons are still there. That's continued. But is there anything else you can think of that's kind of like, hey, we tried that, it didn't really work, so okay.
Every generation and every year we try to do something different. So that's actually our strategy, and that's our target. So, well, that glass with pattern, 3D pattern, was really well accepted, and it's beautiful. It was beautiful. But next year, actually, we launched it with G3 with metallic skin. So we tried something different and new. So every year we try a different one. So as you see, G4 we tried the leather. Mm-hmm. So that's basically our DNA, and that's basically our strategy.
Let's go back to Nexus for a second. Can you talk a little bit about how that process works? We've heard Google say, look, we work with these hardware manufacturers as partners, but this is very much our phone. Or do you see it more collaborative, more of there is a lot of LG DNA in there?
Actually, it should be answered by Google, but as long as I understand, they liked. They still like working with LG. So that was our target actually. I mean, they can pick before Nexus 4, Google had other partners such as Samsung and HTC, and actually our intention was, well, once they finish the project, let's make them fall in love with LG as an engineering standpoint. So that's probably true, because still, as you know, as you see, we launched Nexus 4 and 5, and also we launched something new Nexus as well this year. So still, that was our intention, and still it looks like it's working as well.
I think it definitely showed through, because they said we recognize a lot of people like the Nexus 5, and we're bringing it back and we're making it better. That was really interesting to see, especially that much praise from Google, which has kind of kept the manufacturers at arm's length a little bit. Right. So I think that says a lot. Let's talk about the G Flex series. That's another interesting one in the lineage of LG. Bendable phones, flexible batteries. But again, it almost seems like that's come and gone a little bit. Do you see that sort of innovation as an imperative to the company, or just something? Hey, we'll try it. If it works, great.
As I explained when we launched G Flex, that's like a sports car. So sports car is from the car manufacturer. Also, they are trying different ones as well, from the technology standpoint as well. So and also G Flex, the original one, was pretty well accepted. I actually sold pretty well, and more than we expected, much more than we expected. So that's why we come up with the idea of having the second generation of Flex.
How many of those technologies that we saw in the G Flex line? We have the not scratch proof, but the self-healing back.
Self-healing back.
And that seems when battery technology really kind of took a turn
flexible
as well.
batteries and plastic OLED kind of thing. Yes.
Which we're now seeing in watches.
Yes.
Which is a whole other ballgame.
Right. Actually, the display used in the G Flex, the original G Flex, is the same technology used by the Cupertino guys for the watch.
Different shaped batteries too has come out of that. I mean, does that translate from the G Flex and the bendable battery to what we see now in these hexagonal batteries? Or
yeah, that's basically the same. Yeah, right.
We've got the Nexus 5X now. What do you see specifically in that phone compared to the original Nexus 5 that really stands out to you and makes you proud as a company?
So, as time goes by and the spec is better, of course, and actually this time, so I mean, Nexus is good in terms of the software, but people complained about the quality of the cameras, and this time you will like the camera, and especially that 12 megapixel camera. It's just not 12 megapixel camera. The sensor itself is pretty good, and the pixel size is pretty big as well, and the lens is good. So entire camera system is redesigned, and also taking advantage of all the DNA from the G series. So that's basically the one thing good about the new Nexus. And also we have Type-C. So having the Type-C is not an easy decision, because you have to change all of your ecosystems of charging the phone. But with the Nexus, you can do this.
Do you see other mainstream phones switching to USB Type-C just because it's next?
It's coming, right? But there's got to be a flagship. There's got to be a flagship to be followed.
So go ahead and spill all your trade secrets here. What do you see for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of Android? Do you see these major leaps like we saw in the past 5 years? Do you think it's going to be more of a consistent climb?
I don't know, but one thing I can tell you is still there are many things that we can do on the Android side. So first of all, the vertical integration will be much deeper than today. So it's like today there's a software and there's a Google service and there's a hardwares, and they're all linked together, but they're not fully mingled or mixed together, as you can easily imagine. But in coming years, the Google service and Android operating system and the hardware will be all mixed together to give you the perfect user experience. That's basically the direction and the movement that I can see in the Android space.
Do you still see that the customized versions of Android very much a part of that? So LG has its stamp on its phones and Google has its things, or do you think that'll merge together more too?
I can tell you that from LG, we try to integrate to Google service, just like you have native Nexus. Because, for example, one little gesture or example for G4 is we actually have a Chrome browser instead of LG browser, and also we have Google Office instead of LG Office. So that was the little gesture. So and if you from the next year, you can see more and more actions and gestures to integrate all the features and software together with Google and LG.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you for so much of your time here and for all the great products, and we look forward to seeing more.
Thank you.